Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to another live stream of Shadowverse. Today is Monday, September 21st, and we barely had any chance of this even happening. I'm in the middle of the process. I spent the whole weekend trying to build my new computer and set it up, and mostly stumbled on the fact that it was just going to take more than 3 days to move everything around and get everything installed and set up. And I also am, for one reason or another, having quite the hassle as far as just trying to keep an image of my current Windows install that we're still on right now on my older SSD drive, so I can put the newer SSD drives in my new computer, and then I'm just going to do a fresh Windows install there because I was always planning on doing that. But also it does seem like for some reason copying data from just doing a complete copy of a NVMe SSD that is connected through an adapter card through a PCI Express slot, copying that to an SSD seems to just not want to work. A SATA 3 type SSD connection. That, or it could just be that because I put 6 hard drives in my old computer and moved the SSD to the secondary SATA chip, that's causing a problem too. So there could be a couple different reasons, but it's not really worth even messing around with. But I don't want to lose the entire image also, so I think I may have to just pull out some stops and try to make a virtual image from the install instead. That might be the easiest way to solve this, is just to make a virtual image file of the install, so I have all the files, but it won't actually boot or easily boot as a Windows install. And then I will just have to spend a couple days installing my new computer, new operating system on my computer, and getting everything set up. I also ran into the problem, certainly, of there not really being enough time like to upload the videos. So now we've got videos that are recording here when they should be somewhere else, and it's just like, I did make some progress on the macro, but I'm still not sure that the macro will upload the videos the way I want it to, or with any real efficiency. And it's really not worth it to try to, like, there almost is a thought to have a separate Windows PC that is just completely dedicated to uploading videos, and then having all the videos recorded on an external hard drive, and then just moving that hard drive over and maybe cycling between 2 different hard drives. I suppose if you're a YouTuber with an assistant, that would be a great way to do things. So I've been struggling to try and get Dragoncraft victories, and we've got this arena that in 4 hours will reset, and so I've already done today's arena. Apologies for that, but I did that in the middle of the night thinking I had missed one. I guess I really hadn't. So let's just hop into here. And yep, that's pretty much all I can say for the accountability section. Today is, I've been working on computers. Besides that one hiccup, everything is going fairly well. I'm very much loving my new computer case with just a much more modernized way of doing things, actual cable management, actual room. I think I only spent like 100, maybe 150 for this computer case, and that even if I've spent 150, that was a great investment considering how my old computer case is probably 15 to 20 years old, and it's just super small and missing a lot of modern day conveniences as far as wire management and the CPU being at the bottom, and just air filters and noise suppressors, and just places where you could put more fans, places where you could put more
Hey, how's everyone doing tonight?
where you could put more water coolers, places where you can put more hard drives, even 5.25 drives, places where you can put more SSDs. You can probably squeeze about 12 hard drives in there if you wanted to, or if you needed to. What's an Otohimi's Vanguard worth? Say 2-1 with Rush. Well,
You commanded my empress.
let's do that. So yeah, I'm loving the case. The only thing I will say is I did have to buy like a magnetic air filter vent that because I was putting the fans on with these rubber anti-shock connectors, I ended up having to cut the ends off of them. They're just always in the way. These little rubber nipples, for lack of a better description. And even the air filter that I did get is not as small of a...
These scales can't be. Spread your mighty wings.
Yeah, it's not as small of a hole as I would have thought it would have been. So there still may be a decent amount of dust that just is let in. I also say that my case does seem to be very, very capable of gathering dust and just oil off my hands, and that's a shame. But I mean, you can't really build a computer with gloves on and sterilize yourself, and so for as much time as I've put on it, yeah, I am gonna have sweat and oil on my hands, and unless you're looking at the computer case for some ridiculous reason, you'll never see it, or you could potentially wash the outside of it with just a small amount of soap and water. I don't know if there's a real reason to do that. What does this do? This cuts the cost of cards in half.
Make haste, Sleipnir. The battlefield's ours.
Let's see.
I'm spent.
What else do we want to do?
I hope you enjoy my traps. Nowhere to run. Back to the skies. What?
Bop and roll.
Now, is there anything else to evolve here? I mean, I could evolve this. I could have done a little bit more damage, but there's really no reason. Alright. Sorry, I went quiet there for a second. A lot of the internal parts of the computer, until I turn it on, plug it in, like, I expect with a brand new processor and twice as much RAM and faster RAM, I expect the computer to feel a lot faster than my current computer, which my current computer doesn't feel that slow, so I might be slightly disappointed there. The graphics card is the same, so I'm probably just topping out almost any perceivable difference. And at a certain level, there was a question that certainly happened in my mind. As far as, did I really need to build a new computer at all? I think there is probably an argument to say that I may have jumped the gun a little bit there by 1 year, and it could have been a case where I could have just waited. But it's not a big deal one way or the other. At the end of the day, this new computer should work very well. Except for now, the power just browned out, so I think my internet might be messed up. Connection unstable. Please check your internet connection. Come on. I was about to win too. Seriously. Well, if my internet is just completely wrecked because somebody just crashed into a pole somewhere outside, I'm just gonna have to pretend like this stream is going and hope things work. Let's see. There's kind of no reason to even sit here and talk, since nobody's going to be hearing it, but I guess maybe it doesn't matter anyway, since most of these videos are, if they're ever going to be seen, they're going to be seen past the fact. But there's kind of nothing I can do on the internet either, so I'll just talk about the computer some more. What else is there to say? Like, 2 Samsung 970 EVO Pros should give me a decent amount of room to work with as far as a fast place to work from. Although, you know, maybe a RAID 0 in between the two of them might be interesting, but nah, there's no reason to do that and just try and double the speed. That won't happen. It wouldn't go well in the long run. I decided to migrate over my my Blu-ray drive, Blu-ray burner, which I've gotten pretty much no use from at all. We should be back online now. Quick move to reboot. That really sucks though, because that means I lost that game where I was about to. Interesting. That really sucks because I was about to win. Well, back we go. So, yeah. What else? Yeah, I don't think there's anything else really to say more about the computer. Computers kind of have gotten a little bit generic. A lot certainly has changed since the last time I built a computer. And that's not just the case that is particularly old. And this 3 or 4 computer generations behind, but like my current computer that I'm using right now, my old computer was an X99 Intel, and now they're up to like X780s, so they may have skipped a few numbers there, but it probably has been 7 or 8 years minimum from that point, or maybe they've changed the numbering system. But it is still the same power plug. They haven't changed anything there. It's still, for the most part, the same connectors if you're not using an M2 connector. My new motherboard actually has considerably less ports than my old motherboard. Now that might be because I paid maybe $100 or $200 extra for my old motherboard to have a lot of features like optical, surround sound audio, HD audio, which I never used, or just bought a motherboard that had a whole bunch of USB 2.0 connectors and things like that, whereas my new motherboard has probably eliminated a lot of those just for USB 3.0 plugs, and a few of those even, and so, but honestly, it's not like any of that stuff ever gets used. The number of ports on the back of the motherboard that you actually use or that I actually use, are considerably small. You just don't really do anything with those ports usually. Thunderbolt, or at least discrete Thunderbolt connections, for instance, have come and gone. SOI is about to be abandoned completely, since it never really worked in the first place. The RAM connectors are still pretty much the exact same, I suppose. There might be a difference if we started going to DDR5 versus DDR4, and they might have a different connector then, but that would probably be about it. PCI Express connectors are still the same. The power connectors on practically everything are about the same, although NVIDIA wants to change that pretty soon. There's still a huge mess as far as the connectors to get like reset pins and power buttons and power switches, where there still should be some kind of standardization to that, and there really isn't. USB headers and LED headers now, that's kind of a new thing. And USB connector for the fan, because it can light up on the AMD cooler, which I opted to plug that in after all. I don't know if I mentioned I was thinking about not doing it, but I figured I've got USB headers. There is like a possibility that at some point I might want to get a back plate that would take up one of the PCI Express slots on the computer and plug into a USB 3 header or a USB 2.0 header. That way there's just a couple more plugs on the back, but I bet it never becomes an issue at all. So there is a possibility that the computers will just get a little bit simplistic, or more simplistic. They definitely have over the years slowly been getting that way, where you just don't really need as much knowledge as you at one time did to be able to put together a computer.
There's a lot more where that came from.
But it's still quite a process with a lot of gaps and a lot of potential pitfalls.
Hey, let's play.
Alright, that's enough bearing the lead. We don't have a ton of video game news, but there is definitely one big bit of news that we should talk about. And we'll cover several articles about it, but I think I'll just throw out my own personal opinions. At the moment, I'm about to fall asleep too, so that's why I needed to stream. I've been awake all night, rushing, hoping to make sure I get to this point where I could actually stream today. And I've lost.
They're picking on me. Ready to witness my true strength?
Okay, so let's just talk about it. Microsoft has acquired Bethesda's parent company, ZeniMax, which is effectively acquiring Bethesda, and that's a huge move. Seems to have been a fairly expensive move also, but I feel like there is some point that also needs to be mentioned, that ZeniMax has been kind of a huge failure in a funny way. Like, sure, Skyrim was majorly successful, but what have they done for anybody lately is, I think, the perspective to look from them. They spend ridiculous amounts of cash. Even when they were making Skyrim, they were spending ridiculous amounts of cash. That is... I'm doomed now. Let's see, is there any way we can
You are free, my darling.
get as
Burning
many
flames will
cards
freeze.
played as possible?
Soar.
So yeah, ZeniMax has spent ridiculous amounts of money trying to develop the next Skyrim Elder Scrolls game, which they've only barely teased with one image, and they've also been secretly pouring money into a ton of development in their space Elder Scrolls middle game. Because they were supposed to have a space game and a fantasy game, and there is also the Fallout games, which Fallout 4 is suspected to have been the most expensive game ever developed.
The flames are fading.
My speed is second to none.
Let's see. Okay, what can we do here?
You have angered me.
Unquenchable. Yes.
This guy can figure out any way to do 2 damage or draw 8 cards. He's one. So yeah, the Fallout series
Enjoy my traps.
has not been successful really since Fallout 3.
Victory is a testament to your strength.
In my opinion, and this is where I think really the evaluation and how much was spent for Microsoft to acquire Bethesda ZeniMax falls into the realm of questionable, but probably still a good deal. But yeah, the Fallout 4 is not favorably compared to Fallout New Vegas, which was made by a different company. Skyrim, Elder Scrolls Online is not favorably compared to Skyrim, which I would say Skyrim was probably made by effectively a different company because there was just so much time, and potentially I'd have to do a lot more research to figure out how many people really worked on Skyrim, and as compared to how many people now still work at Bethesda, and they've just completely flopped in their space game. And those are the only 3 games that Bethesda is known for. Now ZeniMax owns, I think, a couple other companies, and they've acquired a couple of companies. So like the id Group with their 2 Doom games, and some of the other games certainly that have been acquired too, and those have been somewhat useful. Like this acquisition is expected to close between January and June of 2021, if according to Brad Sams, who is apparently someone in the know because they got retweeted. But Bethesda and ZeniMax have also run into some problems where they've spent a lot of money suing people or threatening to sue people, being extremely litigious, which that is probably one of the best things that would be corrected by Microsoft owning Bethesda ZeniMax now, is that you will just see less ridiculous legislative legal lawsuits. At least one would hope. Not that I think Microsoft is particularly reticent to sue people. I just think that they would do it with a bit more class. Alright, let's see if we do this one. So yeah, let's just go through here. We have Dishonored, which I never got around to playing Dishonored 2, or the spin-off DLC of Dishonored 2. You have Wolfenstein, which Wolfenstein has had some problems with the VR Wolfenstein game and the daughter's Wolfenstein game, Youngbloods. And I haven't gotten around to doing like the Old Blood prequel game or Wolfenstein 2, which I don't think Wolfenstein 2 particularly sold as well as it could because it ran into dangers of coming off as preachy and SJWE, which is probably more of an accomplishment than you would think, considering how it is a game where you're literally killing Nazis, and yet somehow it still came against its fan base. You have the Elder Scrolls, which once again, Elder Scrolls Online, not that interesting. I believe also they announced some kind of online mobile version of an Elder Scrolls game at some point, and they probably canceled that. I believe at some point Bethesda said they were working on as many as 12 mobile games based on their properties. 12 may just be a number I'm picking up out of the air, but that was where they were going. They were going extremely heavy in mobile games, and nobody liked it. The Bethesda presentation convention, of course, also canceled this year, so that may have hurt them financially somehow too. Fallout, again, you have your hardcore fans of Fallout 1 and 2, you have hardcore fans of Fallout New Vegas, you have people who like Fallout 3. This guy is just playing cards over and over again. This is to run out of cards, I think, for some, so that they can win in one turn. This,
I hope you enjoy my traps. Nowhere to run.
that, and hope that that was good enough. So yeah, as the Fallout fandom, you have people that really like Fallout 3, and that's about all Bethesda made. Fallout 4 was alright, but that's great. Doom 1, fine. Doom 2 seems to have sold fairly well. Starfield is the game that never came out. The Evil Within 1 was good, but the Evil Within 2, not so well. Prey 1 was good. The DLC for Prey 2 didn't sell that well. So you've got a huge issue here of a lot of the current things that ZeniMax was working on and trying to sell being incredibly delayed. They've always been incredibly bad at delaying things. And let's face it, if you're going to start pushing these people to stop using id Tech or whatever engines these are made in, and start using either the Unity engine or the Unreal engine, it's going to be a really, really long time since we see any more sequels to these games. Evil Within 2 was pretty bad. I already mentioned that, but I just want to say it again. So, if I can be a negative Nancy there, let's not think that in the short term Microsoft owning Bethesda is going to all of a sudden take these kind of beloved properties and start doing them justice. Although I think that probably is Microsoft's goal in the long run. It's just going to be a long road to get to that point. Now, in the short run, if you were to come back to this list and say, none of these are getting remasters now for the PlayStation 5, let's just assume that that is what's going to happen. Well, then you start to have to compare these 8 games to equivalents of what would be PlayStation 5 exclusives. Which I'm not sure if you could run really large comparisons there, but and not one-to-one comparisons. For instance, if there was a new Horizon Zero Dawn, that's gonna not really compare with anything here. I guess you could say God of War Ragnarok might match an Elder Scrolls game, but yeah, that's pretty much it. On the other hand, each of these games were AAA products that, if they are now no longer coming out on PlayStation 5 in any kind of remaster, or if their sequels aren't coming out on PlayStation 5, well, then you come down to how many of these games are you interested in compared to how many exclusives on the PlayStation 5 were you interested in. And generally, I would say the exclusives for the PlayStation series tends to really only be 3 to maybe 6 games that ever caught my mind. That was with the PlayStation 3, that was how it felt. And then PlayStation 4 is probably 3 to 6 games. AAA games that I'd even think about wanting to play. So if you have ZeniMax putting out 8 games, of which all 8 of them I would like to play, which is the case at this point, by buying one company, they've opened themselves up to quite a possibility. So, yeah, Yeah, it's big news, but we'll have to see what happens. Apparently, Microsoft had several announcements. The Xbox Game Pass has now topped 15 million subscribers, so that means every month they have 15 million people that I believe are paying at least $30 a month. So you're talking nearly over half a billion dollars every month in gross revenue.
There's a lot more where that came from.
So you can kind of see where Microsoft's getting its money to buy Bethesda. And then here we have a game on Steam called Ironseed 25th Anniversary,
I am the god tree,
which
the root of life.
looks like an old Windows 95 game. I don't recognize it, and it doesn't look particularly interesting. $19.99, English only. No thanks to that.
Victory is a testament to your strength.
I keep beating my head against these missions, and I keep not getting any further on there. Let's try some swordcraft. Let's see if we can at least play around and do something different. The new Xbox app in beta on mobile is now available on more devices, which that's cool. Another Microsoft announcement, and these announcements are definitely tied in such a way that they are trying to eat any enthusiasm that would have been around the Sony PlayStation 5 announcements just a week ago. And in all fairness, I would say the PlayStation 5's announcement last week wasn't even that enthusiastic, because there was a few exclusives and games mentioned. Certainly that caught some people's attention, but then there was also just the price tags and no financing, and their game service that they announced is not big enough of an announcement to compete with what Microsoft offers, and then they knew that probably going into that announcement, because that was already the case.
Oh, this model comes with everything.
Gamasutra has an article here. Hades has sold over 1 million copies under 2 years, which I'm still kind of thinking that 300,000 is a good number, and and then like there was the early access period that got 700,000 units, and I feel like a lot of people got Hades free for an Epic account, or Hades was one of the very first Epic Store exclusives. Hades very well could have been at 2 million at this point. There's no way to prove that one way or the other, but it wouldn't surprise me if that was exactly the case. Because there is just there was that exclusivity deal where Hades wasn't even a really highly anticipated roguelike game. If anything, it barely even maintains relevancy a year later, and with the thoughts of Rogue Legacy, potential Rogue Legacy 2 coming out, it now becomes really, really hard to kind of justify the idea of going and playing Hades.
Follow my lead.
So TechRaptor has the article here too. Microsoft acquires ZeniMax Media for $7.5 billion. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Is that 9? Really? No, there are 8 games here if you include Starfield. So $7.5 billion. They basically paid $1 billion for each franchise and $500 million for Starfield, which that's probably not a terrible price tag. It might be a little bit higher than you may eventually find out that it's worth, particularly if there is as much potential just brain drain than has happened at ZeniMax and Bethesda, as I think there very well may have been. This may very well be a case that they just don't have enough people in good positions to actually be able to make games anymore. And there is deeper questions, certainly, as OpenCritic has the same article, about what does the board look like? Do people at ZeniMax all of a sudden get a seat at the table or a high level paying job at Microsoft, or is everybody at ZeniMax taking a golden parachute and leaving? Because those can be very different outcomes, certainly. If ZeniMax all of a sudden starts influencing Microsoft, that would be making Microsoft a lot worse, frankly. So you're hoping everybody at ZeniMax gets fired, or it gets put on an extremely tight leash. Otherwise, that could be a nightmare scenario. There is also a small danger of potentially having a fear grow. Sorry, I keep on yawning. I need to hurry up. But the good news is we don't really have that much news. Anyways, I could see a lot of independent game developers thinking, should I do business with Microsoft, or are they gonna take me seriously and promote my game, or are they just gonna promote their own games since they have so many other games? That typically would be why you wouldn't want Microsoft to publish first-party title games, but in the video game world, that's never really been an issue. But it certainly would have been an issue in any other kind of job or industry. Not talking about the acquisition though. TechRaptor has an article. Activision's hack may make many Activision accounts vulnerable, so check that out. Major breaches led over to 500,000 Activision accounts being hacked with credentials then being leaked to the public. Okay. So, yeah, that sounds like a bad hack. Here you can see on Bethesda.net, Todd Howard is joining Xbox. Todd Howard, joked often as God Howard, is very much a figurehead, I suspect, more than an actual game developer these days. And so keeping him around would be kind of crazy. Maybe keep him around to do some presentations. I think he's a decent stage presenter, but I don't know if you really need to keep him around for any other reason. Alright, well,
It won't be long now.
Break Their defenses! Charge! Ah!
No one gets past me. You're a solid fighter.
But yeah, that would definitely be a great example of something you really wouldn't want to have happen is to see Todd Howard start exerting large amounts of influence throughout Microsoft, particularly now that Microsoft has just so many other companies that they've invested in and acquired. Like, at a certain point, they're going to have to start shedding some of these companies, or they're going to have to be extremely hands-off with a lot of these companies. And I suspect that might very well be what happens here, is that we see Microsoft acquires ZeniMax and then really not exert much force over them, and just kind of infuse them with more cash to potentially waste. I think Microsoft probably should put some more pressure on them for them to actually deliver products and good products, but Microsoft kind of needs to do that with all of their investments. They may not care in the long run. We have a game here on Steam called Fred 3 Rick, which is, I believe, the third in a series of music games. I thought they were point-and-click adventure games, but they always look like music games to me. Reinterpreted classic works of music, and yeah, you can see, well, apparently I've bought several of their games. I must have gotten them fairly cheap at some point. I think that's what the green means, right? Is that I already own it? Yep, I already own it. So since I already own the game, it's easy enough to decide to put that on the follow list. Yeah, I have no idea when I'd have any free time to clean up the follow list or the wish list any further. I may just be done till New Year, frankly, between installing a new computer and setting all of that up and just generally trying to get things set up and uploaded and videos scheduled. I also am running into a problem, certainly, where I'm gonna probably have the weekends scheduled to such a ridiculous point where I'm a year ahead of weekend footage reruns of this stuff that I might at that point need to triple up on the number of episodes. I guess we could do 2 episodes on Saturday and then 1 episode on Sunday, and that would be an equal amount. But I don't know. I don't know if I want to do that or if I just want to keep on going forward in time. That way there's always something coming out, particularly now that we see that YouTube is potentially getting rid of inactive channels, or trying to label more things as inactive channels, although having something scheduled to come out may not be the activity that they care about. They may say you can have as many things scheduled as far ahead as you want and we'll still call your channel inactive, because that's clearly what they're trying to do, is just reduce the number of people on YouTube down to a small manageable group of a few hundred people. Play this.
Verifying access.
And this.
Verifying access.
And then that.
everyone doing tonight?
And then
There's a lot
Involve
more
that
where
one
that
there.
came from.
Now take a listen to this. Bop and roll.
we have a game on Steam here called COVID-20, which probably I would just call an asset flip first-person shooter zombie game. It's lacking some polish in the menu, but frankly the rest of the game looks fairly polished. So, wow, a low effort name with a fairly decently polished looking game. The heads up display could certainly use work, and it does seem like you're just shooting zombies. $11.99 English only. I don't think any YouTuber could ever play a game by that name though, because they would just get all those videos flagged. Next we have Spy Story, which is just a solitaire game. Same old Spy Story, The Elusive Evidence for $2.99. Bunch of languages. English, French, German, and Russian. Nothing special there that would justify talking about any further.
Shutting down.
Next we have a game called Messy Room Simulator, which I guess might be puzzles in which you're trying to organize and clean the rooms. It's early access, $4.49, English and Chinese. This is probably a low effort asset flip game, Chinese asset flip game if I was to guess.
If you enjoy my traps, know where to run.
Verifying access.
Right.
Ready to witness my true strength?
Trying really hard to win,
Enemy identified.
but I'm not guaranteeing a victory here. And pretty much once I'm done with all the news, I'm just gonna go through the my Twitter feed and the Humble Bundle listings, and then I'm gonna call it a day, even if this is just an hour-long presentation, because yeah, I should have probably started streaming 2 hours ago, and instead I was distracted trying to get Windows installs to potentially work. Yeah, that inherently is a problem for anybody who might at one day want to work in IT, is to find out that the software that you're used to using and that used to work, like Clonezilla, all of a sudden has a reason why it's not working.
This bears further study.
Next we have a game on Steam called Balloon Saga, which looks just like a low effort game, for $5.99 and supports a bunch of languages. That's not worth it. Yeah, I definitely need to go to sleep. I keep wandering off in thought and going quiet.
How did you avoid my
Next
trap?
we have a game here called Throw It, which looks like a low effort box sorting game. Early access, $9.59, 12 achievements. We've gotten considerably few Gamatsu articles lately. Here we have one, Soldier X2 Final Prototype Definitive Edition has been announced for PS4. What kind of game is this? It's a shoot 'em up action game. Okay. Let's see.
Stand tall. seen thy truth.
Next we have Legacy Witch Island, which looks like it's a hidden object game. Yes, it is. From HH Games for $4.49, which is a much more reasonable price than the Big Fish games, which we haven't seen a Big Fish game in a while, so it does think like it's possible that when they laid off 100 of their employees, they basically laid off all their employees. Next we have a game on Steam called Rivals, which is tagged as a visual novel, but to me it seems like it's just a collection of still images. $5.99 English only.
This victory is a testament
Yep.
to your strength.
It's a pretty bad statement to call something a visual novel and still think that a collection of still images is not acceptable. Alright, well, the only other mission that I even have a chance of succeeding to is if I get a private match and win. So I will create a private match for a very brief second, and if anybody wants to join me and challenge me and let me win fairly quickly, type in this match ID. Otherwise, we've got like 5 more tabs and then we're gonna be done. Here we have a game on Steam called Elisic 2074. I don't know how you pronounce that, but it seems to be a very heavy text-based game with just small bits of imagery. English not supported. It's $1.50. It's Russian only, so I don't know if you want to call that a Russian low effort game or not. Next we have a game on Steam called An Evil Existence, which seems like you're running around fighting monsters. Monsters fighting monsters. Yeah, it feels like it's pretty much an asset flip game. $24.99 English full audio. Let's look at this developer and see if they've made anything else. Yeah. Let's see. I'm gonna skip around this video and see if maybe the video shows something different. See, I kind of get the feeling like this is supposed to be a game where like a bunch of evil monsters and bad guys from hell escape hell, and you're fighting against them. And that concept on its own, as far as a horror game, is not terrible. Kind of like a Silent Hill experience where you're running into a lot of different varied and interesting enemies. Although, in all fairness, most horror stories fail to even have one interesting bad guy and enemy, let alone trying to make a whole collection of them. So, yeah. There really is not a good reason to put this on the follow list, but I'm gonna put it on the follow list just to see, just to come back to it and say, yeah, I was right about that being nothing. Let's see. Next we have a game on Steam here called Songs of Wuxia. I don't know how else you would pronounce that. That's probably not right. It's tagged as an RPG and it's mixed already. English is not supported, $5.94. Single player only, Chinese only. Okay, well that would explain why it's mixed already. It must be actually a pretty boring RPG that is stretching really hard to look like it's not boring. Let's see. And then TechRaptor apparently on the weekend just decided that they needed to put something out, so they put out ranking the Hades gods by sexiness, which, like, this kind of dumb, pointless articles are absolutely not necessary and ridiculousness. I wouldn't say that most of these characters look particularly even attractive or particularly sexualized in any way at all. Although a couple of them definitely do seem to have been drawn in that style, but that definitely is not interesting or useful. They also seem to have written several Super Mario 64 guides, which nobody really needs that. Speaking of which, these emulated games apparently have some debug cubes in them, so they don't even seemingly have the final version of Mario 64 being emulated. Although I do know that there are a few glitches in Mario 64, so maybe people are making more out of what was already there than they should. Next we have a game on Steam here called Isles of Pangaea, which seems to have you play as a very small dinosaur in a world full of a bunch of dinosaurs, if any of these screenshots would load. This is probably an asset flip game. $19.99 English only. Yeah, it'd be hard pressed to think that there actually is a game here that's interesting, though. Anyways, playing as a dinosaur can only get you so far. Next we have a game on Steam called Tranquil Garden, which seems to be part RPG, part top-down RPG game. It's called Personal Playstyle RPG. Feels like it's just not a game, but it's free, so I guess the price is right, and it's English only. So if Tranquil Gardens looks interesting to you, check it out. Sega/Atlas announced their Tokyo Game Show 2020 online lineup and schedule. They'll be showing off Puyo Puyo Tetris 2, Fantasy Star Online 2, New Genesis, and more. Let's see if there's anything here. Bayonetta and Vanquish 10th Anniversary Edition bundle. Fist of the North Star game. It's a lot of Android games. I'm not seeing anything amazingly new. I imagine Mario Sonic at the Olympic Games might sell pretty badly because the Olympics were postponed. I imagine both of those will sell fairly badly. Yeah, no big announcements so far. And I bet there won't really be that many big reveals at the Tokyo Game Show anyways. And then Gamasutra had a job listing here for Remedy. They're looking for a development director in Espoo, Finland. Remedy seems to be constantly listing job listings regardless. Let's see. There's a report here from Gamasutra, we'll just mention it, that Riot Games and Epic Games are under US government scrutiny over Tencent ties. I don't think you can really believe anything's going to come from any of that for a while, or ever. Because, let's see, in the United States there's maybe 2 months at most until an election, and I think that everything will just get forgotten in the mess of the election, regardless of who wins and doesn't win. So then that brings that just brings me down to my Twitter feed. TechCraft has an article, Bethesda engine overhaul for Starfield largest since Oblivion, which that probably is why ZeniMax is out of money. They've probably been secretly bleeding money for such a long time, and really can't make it very off of like Elder Scrolls Online sales alone. There is also a problem with Microsoft buying ZeniMax and the fact that everybody has Skyrim at this point, so I don't know what else they could do with it. They can't remaster it yet again and sell it a fourth time. TechRuptor has a tweet here. Monster Hunter Rise free post-launch updates have been confirmed. So, if you play Monster Hunter Rise, that'll be interesting. Let's see, I'm just going through the Twitter feed. And yeah, that's all the news I have. So, yeah. I clearly need some sleep. And we may have a few of these shorter presentations and streams happening. We only went about an hour. In part because I'm still just like stuck trying to get these daily quests done, and I just don't have a good dragon craft. I just don't have a good haven craft. I could play swordcraft and get that done. We are at a point where we are about to another expansion, and I would imagine if this limited time event only has 1 day left, we may very well be at that next expansion point. We may see new cards on Wednesday. Well, that's certainly looks more colorful than usual. And I did get a legendary card here. Portalcraft card. So, okay. We have a couple of future tickets. Let's see, 2 upcoming pack tickets, which definitely makes it feel like we're close to being to a new expansion. And if I was more awake, we would also do a challenge and an open 6. But I guess there's probably not even a good reason to do that at the moment. Well, that's going to be it for the stream. Sorry I was sleepy. Sorry that there really isn't too much to say. I'll be very interested in seeing people's enthusiasm around ZeniMax. I think probably a lot of people will be super enthusiastic around it, and this will be a lot of fodder for Xbox fanboys to say that they've won the next console generation when very well they may not have. But it also may mean absolutely nothing in my opinion, considering it may just be that ZeniMax never makes another game that's good, or never makes another game anyways. That's going to be it for the stream though. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want to friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. And if you want to support me further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wishlist. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.